Today we're going to be talking about Battlefield 2042 for Xbox One and PS4, and it is official information, so it will give you an idea of what to expect, and then we can compare it to the next generation versions to see how they differ. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video and let's get right into it. Now on screen right now you can see the Microsoft Store for the Xbox One version, and underneath you can see the capabilities, and it confirms that yes, we will see 64 players. And that was something that Tom Henderson confirmed ahead of the reveal. He said on Twitter that we will see a more scaled back version, smaller maps and 64 players. And it looks like he will be correct. I think we will have a smaller player count, of course, and smaller maps to facilitate the 64 players. And if we go across, we can see 4K Ultra HD, and I think that's referring to the more powerful base consoles, the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X. And we have seen in the past that they do tend to have higher resolutions, maybe 4K dynamic resolution or maybe 1440p. But I do believe we will see higher resolutions on both the Xbox One X and the PS4 Pro. However, I don't think we're going to see 128 players on the Xbox One X and the PS4 Pro because they seem to be working in the same framework. Now, some really positive news is that it will be aiming for 60 FPS, so we will see 60 FPS on Xbox One and PS4, and that's a good positive thing to see because I think a lot of console players are now accustomed to that more smoother gameplay and that 60 frames per second. Now let's take a look at the next generation consoles. Now on screen right now you can see the Microsoft page, and underneath again you can see the capabilities, and 128 players has been confirmed, and you can see online co-op 2 to 4 players. It'll be interesting to see if there is any sort of crossplay. That's what makes me think that the sort of core features, the destruction, aren't going to change, but certain features like lighting and the overall graphical fidelity will be different, of course, on the past gen consoles. But I think there will be some level of parity and consistency between all the versions. So it could be interesting to see whether we do have some sort of crossplay here, maybe with co-op for instance. Now we can see 4K Ultra HD. I think for Xbox Series X and PS5 we could be looking at a dynamic 4K or even a native 4K, and for the Series S we'll likely see around sort of 1080p or even 1440p, and I think that's going to be 4K 60 on the Series X and the PS5, and I think there will be an option for 120 FPS because it does talk about 60 FPS plus and also optimized for Xbox Series X and the S version. And recently we have been seeing 120 FPS on some of these Battlefield games like Battlefield 4 and Battlefield 1. So it will be interesting to see whether we see a performance mode on the next generation consoles that lower the fidelity, lower the graphical fidelity, the resolution to help them get a higher frame rate. Overall, I think the differences between next gen and past gen are likely going to just be the sort of lighting and overall graphical fidelity, textures, effects, and say for instance the 128 players, maybe even a performance mode that can hit 120 FPS. So if you do own a TV or monitor that can support those higher refresh rates, then that would be a real big selling point and a positive because it is nicer to get those smoother experiences. So I do think there are some differences definitely between the next gen and the past gen, but I think the past gen will have its own right. It'll have its own sort of game that can be enjoyed by PS4 and Xbox One owners who don't have the next gen consoles. At the end of the day, Battlefield players are used to 64 players, so this game for current generation owners will be very similar to what they've had previously anyway. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like, subscribe, make sure you have all bell notifications on because I will be streaming on June 13th on a Sunday, and we'll be looking at the new gameplay reveal that I'm very excited for, and I think arguably this is going to be more important, or it will be more important, way more important actually, than the reveal trailer itself, because we're actually going to be seeing proper gameplay this time. So until next time, have a good one.